Daz. On the bench today is an Alba 212 record player from about 1962 I think. Something I picked up locally. It's a little dirty, needs a clean. I've had a go at cleaning one corner and it has come up quite well. It's a bit of foam cleaner, but I've got some car cleaner I'd like to try perhaps. Very simple affair. Volume, off tone. Carrying handle, as you'd expect. Vent slot at the back. There's a slot at the back there. Looks like it's had been experienced a little bit of moisture because it's showing signs of rust. Okay, just open it up. It's got a BSR Monarch turntable in it, which is hard to show you. Should have got the camera angle higher. It's a 2-valve set, a UY85 rectifier and a UL84, so only a single valve for the amplification. The foul filaments run off a tap off the transformer, not the transformer, but off the motor. So it's a bit like an auto transformer tap, and the HT is derived directly from the mains, so it's what you'd call a live chassis amplifier, as it were. Here's a shot from the top. You can see the Monarch deck, BSR deck. I think the cartridge has been changed in it because it's not got a flip over anymore, so it's got a different cartridge in it, but it doesn't really look like there's been much modification apart from that. I've removed the wooden cover here, and I need to do a bit of woodworking I think. Unfortunately that seems to have delaminated, but it's a little notch where it sits in. So I've got an elliptical speaker, output transformer, the UL84 and the UY85 rectifier. The smoothing cap can be seen. This baffle board also comes out, so that's useful. So that's the first look of what it's like inside. It brings back lots and lots of memories for me. Having looked in a lot of these types of record players when I was younger in the 70s, taking them apart as usual, as you do, because I was terrible for taking everything apart. Yeah, it's got that familiar old record player smell. You can't beat that. The platter is free, and let's see if there's any mechanism operation. Yes, very surprisingly there is, so that's good. I think my next trick will be isolation transformer, variac and dim bulb, and I might try bringing it up and see what happens. I've jerry-rigged a meter between the connected to the output transformer and to the chassis, so I might be able to see if there's any HT as I gradually bring it up. Well, I'm at about 30% of supply voltage, which I suppose is going to be something in the region of 80 volts, and I've got HT coming up. It's 37 volts and rising. I'm just going to leave it there for a while. Well, I'm about half mains voltage, and there is amplifier action. No motor action unless it's seized or the pulley wheel isn't very good. Okay, so we're at about 230 volts. I think I can hear the motor running, but it's obviously not driving the turntable. About 243 volts of HT. The amplifier is definitely alive, but I think I'm going to leave it there now. So we know there's a problem with the record deck, and but the amplifier is actually functional. Well, the motor is running. It is very, very stiff, but it's probably not got enough torque to drive the turntable. The rubber wheel feels alright actually. Not much of a rotation, but a rotation, so yeah, it just needs a darn good clear up. Like every BSR turntable normally does. Right, I'm going to unpower this. Well, here's the amplifier. Very simple affair. It's the connections to the motor. The white is the filament drive. You can see it's looped to the rectifier first, then looped to the amplifier valve, then to ground. Just input limiting, current limiting, and to the rectifier from the live. Resistor there for the screen grid. Bypass capacitor, cathode resistor. There's really not much to it, is there? It's got these horrible controls which I've familiar with in reel-to-reels. I have got some, so if I need to possibly, yeah, that is loose. That needs the washer pushed down. That is very loose. That one has got a switch built in, so that's different. But yeah, very simple amplifier indeed. It was said that these UL84, which is the same as an EL84 of course, it was said that they were very high sensitivity, so you only need about 4 volts RMS to drive it. Now I guess these older cartridges have got about 3 volts RMS on them. Of course the more modern ones don't, so I've got some ideas going around in my head about how to get round that, but anyway, it's the first look at the amplifier. I have to excuse my really bad drawing, but there we go. So we have the live and neutral coming in. Hopefully it is connected that way. There is a double pole switch. This is the motor winding, and as you can see there's a tap part way down it, so it's acting like an auto transformer. And you've got the 2 valve filaments in series. They're 100 milliamp string, and the 2 of the valves the filaments add up to 86 volts, so that's gives you 100 milliamp flowing through there. So that's how the filament is derived. And then you've just got 180 ohm limiting resistor through the rectifier and into 32 microfarad smoothing cap, and then you've got an additional 82 to the screen grid and a 32 down to ground. So that's quite a low screen grid voltage, which I forgot to put in. 98 volts, there we go. Basically the input grid just goes straight to a potentiometer. No blocking capacitor, so there must be some DC on that volume control, probably make it sound scratchy. And to prevent you getting electrocuted when you touch the cartridge, well, you'll feel something I guess. There's 150k there, that also helps match the impedance I guess. And the ground side is isolated by 10 nanofarad capacitor. There's another 10 nanofarad connected to the motor plate, that's the metalwork to do the turntable. That all helps to keep the hum down. And this is just basically, you know, the live chassis. All the time there was a lot of live chassis stuff in the 60s to eliminate transformers. To keep the cost down, television sets and radios all used them. It's fine as long as nothing goes wrong, I guess. But it's just not my favourite way of doing it. But you can see there's a bypass capacitor on the cathode here as well. That's to get the gain up as much as possible with this UL84. No feedback, so you're not going to get any reduction of distortion. But that's as basic as you can get. And there's so many. I was looking at different other record player circuits in the radio and television book, and they're all very similar to this. The particular book I am looking at is 1963 to 64 this model's in. So I realised I forgot to draw in the tone control. Interestingly, it is basically a compensation capacitor like you would normally put across a transformer, but it's got a preset resistor in series with it, so you can vary the amount of tone compensation. Interestingly, it doesn't go to the HT and it doesn't go to ground. It actually goes to the G2 bypass, which is a bit odd, I thought, but you know, obviously the capacitor will pass audio, so it's okay, but that's how it's done. I guess the tone control's done like this so that you're not wasting any gain, because obviously this needs as much gain as it can get. I've been sitting here thinking about this circuit, and I'm probably going to want to change the cartridge. Though the cartridge does seem to work, you don't know how much life it's got left, and we know that you need about 4 volts RMS to get this up to full power, and we know that modern cartridges are probably only about 1 volt. So there's also the issue of it not being isolated. So I'm just having one of my mad thinking sessions. I'm thinking of doing away with the UY85 and replacing it with a silicon diode, and I was thinking a UBC81 maybe. I've probably got plenty of them. They're a 100 milliamp valve and that could go in series, so I'd need 59 volts and 150 volts isolated if I wanted to do it that way. The other alternative I've got is to just put an isolation transformer in and then put a dropper resistor off the motor winding and retain that part, and just put an isolation transformer in front of the whole set. But you know, I'm just thinking also, if I had this extra gain stage, I could possibly take some feedback from the speaker back into the cathode resistor of the preamp and reduce the distortion of the amplifier overall. But at least it means then I can earth the plate of the BSR turntable. I'd feel a lot happier with that. Well, I'm just doing a few tests on the amp. The volume control is knackered, so I'm hoping one off a tape recorder will fit, or I'll have to try and repair it. The clip doesn't seem to be holding it in, and it's not making connection with the wiper, so I'm still slightly puzzled why we actually had audio, but there we go. I just bypassed it for the moment. Needs about 2.2 volts RMS to get full output. So yeah, this would have been designed to work with a 3 volt output crystal cartridge, I guess. So definitely, if I want to use a 1 volt cartridge, I'm going to need a bit of extra amplification. Just remove the amplifier. I'm just taking the baffle board out. Very long screws. I guess it's probably some of those metal captive fins the other side. Nice empty box. Thought I might find some old coins in it, but no. Well, we can see what's happened here. This is sort of delaminated, hasn't it? That's a shame. But hopefully I've got the bits, so hopefully that's glueable. Let's have a look here carefully. Oh, that looks a little bit of rust there. Motor mounts are not good. It's definitely a little bit loose. Here's the chassis isolation capacitor, so that's connected between the ground of the chassis and the turntable, so if that failed, you know all about it. And there's the isolation one for the ground of the pickup. These are blue capacitors, which seem quite familiar. And I must admit, oh yeah, look at this grease. Yeah, that's treacle. Must admit, the mechanism looks a lot more simpler than I was expecting. 10 nanofarad at 1000 volt working. They want to be high voltage ones. You don't want them breaking down, do you? Type 660. Just looking at the cartridge, it's marked Japan and it's yellow, and that looks like a BSR type stylus, so yeah, I don't know what to make out of that. It's obviously changed sometime in the early 70s maybe, but yeah, yellow cartridge, not seen that before. Well, there's a closer look at the chassis. Now it's detached, so I've disconnected the mains and filament tapping. So these have a little clip on them. Yeah, these have a little clip on them. I don't think I can get much closer than I am already without going out of focus, but this is distinctly loose. So it does, when you push it back down the out, it's come right off now. Let's have a look. Oh, that's fell right out. So there's your carbon track. And that's what's making contact. So you've got this little, yeah, it's got sort of like a crease in it. Keep going out of frame, don't I? So there's a little crease in here. and then that just makes contact with the wiper, and that's about it. Complete with fluff. I suppose my immediate question is, what stops that moving round? That may well be half the problem. Well, it's quite simple really, the answer. When I sat here and looked at it for 2 minutes, is of course that should sit in there. That's held in position there, and presumably if this is tight, in here, then it'll stay put. But this small clip doesn't seem to want to hold it. Maybe the small clip doesn't seem to want to hold it, so maybe I'll have to see if I can find something different. Right, just have a look, see what happens. Yeah, looking like it might be workable. Ooh, not so good in that bit, but yeah, there's a bit of a bad bit there. Just have to hope it's not a crack. I've just given the wiper a clean. My goodness, that's dirty. Anyway, I've bent the springy bit that makes contact with the carbon track, and I've flattened out this clip somewhat. So it's got a good grip now, so let's see if it's workable. Well, it looks like it might be. Well, as you can see, I'm still struggling with this volume control. I did find some more star washers, but I just can't push it on. There just doesn't seem to be enough shaft sticking out to do it. I had a look at the tape recorder, and as you can see, it's more going to be a match for the tone control, but unfortunately I don't have the bracket to make the upgrade so that it was the same as this one. I need another bracket like this, which I think is a bit beyond my metalworking skills, to say the least. What metalworking skills? So I'm still trying to solve this issue of the rotary pot. Now, these seem to have been quite popular in the early 60s, having these rotary controls like that slider controls were in the 70s. The only problem is that they're just not easy to substitute when you've got a problem with them. Another suggestion that was made to me was to drill out this shaft and put a nut and bolt through. That's another possibility, I guess, because having a bolt this side it wouldn't cause any particular problem, so thought it would be fun just to shoot the basically all the electronics in one bit. Now I've detached the motor. I'm going to clean the motor in a moment. There's a note here. When black and brown leads are connected to 240, black and white leads give 90 volts at 0.1 amps, which is obviously the current. Those 100 milliamp valves are the UL84 and UY85. If you take more than 0.1 amps, the motor may overheat. There's your warning. I did check, actually neutral is actually connected to the chassis, so next thing is to get the motor apart, clean the shaft, and I assume there's some pads in here, just get some oil in those. Well, I've disassembled the motor. Here we go. I've also marked that at the bottom, so I reassemble it the right way and don't end up with paying records backwards. It's pretty greased up, so I'm going to clean this up with IPA now and re-lubricate the bearings. There's I can see there's congealed grease down the bottom there. Yuck. So out with the IPA and some cotton buds. Well, that certainly seems an improvement. I think I need to clean the shaft a bit more. It certainly looks like it's done a few miles, so a little bit more clean of that. But the motor certainly sounds and spins a lot better than it did. Yeah, that's very good. That's much better. Yes, runs much better when it hasn't got treacle for lubricant, I guess. Well, I guess this is where the fun begins. Well, at least I've seen the mechanism work. I'm just not sure about these grommets. The thing with rubber is sometimes it goes hard, but sometimes it goes soft as well. They seem a little bit soft. But pinch wheel, well, idler wheel doesn't seem that bad. It's quite pliable, so might be lucky on that. But I'm going to take the cam off and look at the bearings. They look, oh yeah, they're absolutely caked. Ugh, and I'm caked now in it. Right, yeah, that's just really, really, ugh. Yeah. So, get me cotton buds, my IPA, and just go around everything, get it cleaned up, and I'll have a look, see what's going on underneath. Well, I'm getting there. I think I've used enough IPA to, well, get drunk, I think. But yeah, things are gradually coming clean. This is no easy job, but I do remember in the 80s, early 80s I think, sometimes I'd look at uncles and aunties' records player, and this cam was jammed up then, and that was in the 1980s when these wouldn't have been that old. And I used to just give them a quick clean, re-lubricate and give them back. Oh, well done, you fixed that. Well, it's only a little bit of grease, isn't it? So it wasn't anything particularly technical, but yeah, if the cam gets particularly gummed up, you can get to a case where you just, the auto stop mechanism will just, or auto start mechanism, what you want to call it, will just get stuck in certain points. So okay, just slapping some lithium grease on, and just hoping that'll work well. Yeah, that certainly feels easier now. I'm going to give the idler wheel a lubrication and do that while I'm here. And I'm going to move underneath the chassis. A lot of dirt on this chassis. There does seem to be just the one washer on this one underneath. The rubber wheel seems quite good. So going to do a quick clean. Right, now it's a case of cleaning some more of it up. This mechanism here, which is used for the speed change. Notice this one's metal. It's got a metal cam, this one, because the later ones were plastic if I remember. Very greasy. I'm not quite sure how you adjust the height, but there is a screw there, so maybe that's screwed in and out to get the idler wheel to align with the right point on the motor shaft. I don't know why, but this seems less complicated than that darn Ferguson I worked on. But anyway, I'll just get on with it. Can't really do anything else but get the grease off, and then at least we'll have hopefully a reliable turntable. What is also interesting on this is that instead of there being a spring on the top of the mechanism like most of the other BSR decks I've looked, you've got this spring here which seems to be pushing the idler wheel into position. There doesn't seem to be a lot of torque there. Being a bit lazy today, I'm going to hopefully manage to clean most of the mechanism without dismantling too much of it, because that isn't fun. It's very time consuming, but usually most of the parts you can get to and re-lubricate once you've cleaned them down. Just got to redo this and go around the mechanism here. I've just been looking at how some of this mechanism works compared to the one I looked at last time on the Ferguson. So that's the end of record trigger, which goes down to the cam. Lifter mechanisms here, and that's a small little finger, and that lifts the arm up. I noticed some teeth here. That's what must set the drop position of the record, 10, 7 inch, 12 inch, etc. So that looks familiar to what I've seen before, but I've always liked these quick release transit screws. So that's locked into the turntable, and that's flicked up, and that's now allows you to take the turntable out. The nice thing about the BSR turntables, at least you can change them, because most of them had the same mounting. So just looking at this mechanism here, so that's what actually disengages the pinch wheel. I see. Well, not pinch wheel, idler wheel. I'm thinking of tape recorders, but I'm just not convinced at the moment that there's enough tension here. I'm also looking at the position of this. It could do with some adjustments, but so that's 1633 and 78. We'll soon find out. If I haven't got enough grip, then I'll need to look at that spring mechanism again. But so much for disassembling, not disassembling. I've got quite a lot of the mechanism apart now. I'm still finding stuck grease. Ugh. This spring here is a cause of a few problems for me. It ensures that this lever's in the right place to hit this and auto stop, but sometimes this is not going back far enough. I've tried to shorten the spring a bit, but I don't have a spare to replace it with, so that might be a future problem. Right, switch on. Interesting. A bit of a delay there. It tends to suggest to me something's still not right about the idler wheel going in. Let's see if something will happen. Yeah, it's slowing down a bit still. Still not enough torque. Better than where I started, I guess. So what I've done is I've managed to get another turn on the spring that does the idler wheel. Managed to twist it round another turn. That's more like it. I can see the motor moving on its mount, so yeah, so that's a lot better. So I guess the spring is weak on the idler wheel, so that would be the spring here, which you can't see. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this spring here. Managed to put another turn on it, and that seems to have helped a lot. Blimey. Ooh! And the detection works as well. Ooh! Got some replacement grommets here, so I'm hoping that this will be far less wobbly than it is at present once I've replaced them. Definitely a size difference here. They look like they're flattened with age. Wow, that feels much better. That feels much better. I know you need anti-vibration, but you don't want the motor slopping around like it was. That is anti-vibration, but make sure that this motor doesn't tip when you've got the force of the idler wheel against it. So yeah, definitely worthwhile replacing those grommets. Yeah, it's odd because they normally go hard, but these have gone very soft. And I've seen some rubber now that's done that. You never predict what chemically these things are going to do over the years. The torque is a lot better now, and the motor's not moving out of the way when you stall it. I still say there should be a little bit more torque there, but I'll work on that. Maybe I'll put some rubber revisor on the idler. See if my phone flies off. No, that's a little bit fast. I don't think it matters. It's not a huge difference. I don't think you'd hear that at 78 or 16. That's fairly accurate at those two speeds. Not bad. I'm just doing a little bit of experimenting with power supplies and transformers at the moment. And my favourite idea at the moment is this 0.55 transformer. I'm thinking of using a UBC81 as a preamplifier and a voltage doubler, and when that's on load I'm getting about 260, so that's not far from where I want to be. It's not the first time I've discovered that radio valve has been used in the record player. Apparently the Bush SRP30, I believe, uses a UBC 81, sorry, a UBC 81. I just thought of the idea because it's adds up to around 55 volts with one of those in series with the UL84. But anyway, that's where I am at the moment, and at least it'd make for a safer record player having an isolated chassis. I can earth the turntable without problems, and it should cut down on the hum. Not a good start. I came up with some ideas and had a look at some books. I've got a 0.55 volt transformer with 2 windings, and I came up with the idea of using a voltage doubler. It does give about 260 volts and about 350 volts off load because they are quite high impedance. Basically, this capacitor's being charged up on the negative cycle, and then that plus the voltage from the transformer is being pushed into this reservoir during the positive cycle. The filaments can work off the 55 because it's nearer 60, and that's right, so that's 14 plus 45, 59 volts, so that's about right. I've got a UBC 81 now, so I was going to use that as a preamp. This circuit I've basically borrowed from a Bush SRP 30, but I obviously don't know what the output transformer's like. This does have feedback, so I was thinking of using this circuit, but we'll just have to see how well it works, how well it'll work. But that's just my ideas at the moment. Just thought we'd have a look at the work I've done so far. Here's the preamp valve. You can see I've used screen cable. I've earthed the screen cable from the UL84 and not earthed it this end, and took it as close as I could to the input capacitor. It was very close to the anode resistor now, but and there's now a screen cable from the volume control. Now, all the problem I had with the feedback appears to be because this volume knob is not screened. And of course I had the audio output cable, which is of course moving at several hundred volts right over it. Of course it doesn't like that. I also had to move the output transformer away from the amplifier because it didn't like that either. So that's the problem of having more gain. I need to find a clip that fits this valve because that's for the rectifier. I have put a discharge resistor in on the HT now. I just hope I haven't crowded this up too much that now no longer fits. I'm a bit worried that's going to hit the piece of wood that's sitting there, so I might have to move those parts around again. But I've also moved the tone control capacitor up a bit away from the volume control. Because yes, the problem with these natty volume controls, there's just no screening, is there? So yeah, This is the bumper cartridge I've fitted. I've drilled a hole in the mount again. The problem is it's not really holding tight, so I might have to use some adhesive or something to hold that into place. But yeah, I put one of these on my Ferguson stereo minor, much better than the other cheap type cartridge. These ones are. It sounds a lot better, better stereo separation and bass. So hopefully this will work well in here. The only problem I've had is trying to line it straight, because every part of this tone arm isn't straight, it seems, so it's quite difficult. I haven't adjusted the spring yet. It doesn't look like I've got a lot of play there. It looks like it's on quite heavy already, because these cartridges I suppose are a little bit lighter. Just having a look at this cartridge. Yeah, look, there's some, like, if I get that out of the way from the torch, there's some tram lines, so I'm going to line it up with these sort of tram lines. Hopefully one of these clips will fit. It's always useful to have some junk bits, isn't it? Oh, that looks far too small. I don't know. I'll have a rummage through. I'm going to have to be careful with this loudspeaker because I'm going to see something happening. We know my reputation with that. Right, I've cut back the 90 volt tapping and insulated it off just so it could be used in the future. I've taken this tag off and I've put a lock washer, a spiky washer behind here so we get good earth. Now fitted an earth wire so the turntable can be earthed. So I'll get it back together. So I'm making good progress anyway. The only thing is the motor's going to run all the time because I guess because this type was driving a filament, they never fitted a switch, so the motor will run all the time when the record player is switched on, but not much you can really do about that. Going back to the volume knob issues I've had, as you can see I've got some plastic on here. The original little clip, one of the pins broke out of it. I tried to bend it tighter, but I managed to find another one that fits tight. Although it's held, I have decided to put some epoxy resin on and then leave it upside down with this plastic underneath and keep moving it just to make sure it doesn't stick. The last thing I want to do is glue the volume pot up, but I don't want that clip to fall off either, so it's a bit of a risk this, but hopefully I won't get burnt. Well, this is the turntable platter, and as I said earlier, the rubber has gone rather brittle, so I looked online and I found a replacement. That looks a fairly good match, doesn't it? It's got the little pips in. I don't quite know yet how these are going to come out of this old one. I suspect it means it's so brittle it's going to have to be a bit of a push on this to get them out, but I'm sure they'll come out. So yeah, crumbling a bit, but it should be alright. I'll just get this one off. Naked platter now, so I'm just going to give this a clean up before I put the new one on. I think it looks quite dirty. Well, that certainly looks a little bit better, doesn't it? Got me dirty fingers all over it, but yeah, that certainly looks a big improvement than the old one. But like I said, what wasn't cheap, so yeah. But certainly when the record's dropped now, at least it's got something more rubbery to fall on, instead of going bang. Well, Christmas has come and gone, so I'm back onto this now. I think I need to move this feedback wire. It's in a bit of an odd position. I'm just reattaching the mains cable. There's the fuse to protect the motor and the transformer. The transformer in here, I've picked the toroidal. It is actually, in fact, a temperature protected device. So there we go, somewhere here. There we go. There. What's that? 130. Yes, I have got two plasters now. Yes. I seem to be having a lot of accidents recently. Right, okay, so I'm just getting prepared now to sort that out. There's also an HT fuse on the transformer as well, so I should be well protected all the way around with this. Getting very, very busy under here. There is actually one more capacitor here than it was on the diagram, so I'm going to have to go back and redo that. So we've got all the parts on. Managed to find some inexpensive feet, which just got a nail on. They seem to match okay. You can see I still need a bit more cleaning down here if I can. It's quite amazing how dirty this record player was. But, yeah. Right. Oh, I just need a bigger bench, I think. Well, I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. It's a bit of a problem. I keep this transformer away from this pot, and I need to keep this transformer away from this transformer so I don't get an inductive field into it. I think it's going to be a case of try it and see. Well, now I've got the speaker in, I can hear a slight hum still, but I haven't got it officially earthed yet. Whether being earthed might reduce it a bit, but this transformer doesn't seem to be giving any problems at all. I've moved it back and forth, so that's what I really wanted to try, but I'll try it with a bit of YouTube music. Tone low, tone high. Just been mounting the plate to the bottom. I've used quite big washers because it's only hardboard on the bottom here, so I don't want it. The question is, can I get the transformer on? Ooh, just about. That is close, but I think I preferred the transformer over here. My concern was if I put it underneath, whether the top part of the transformer might touch the turntable, because as I'm sure you know, you can't have the top nut earthed and the bottom of the nut earthed because it's a shortening turn. And what have I forgotten to do? I've got to put the rubber on. There we go. Right. That's quite fiddly, this. Well, I'm just finishing putting it together. Got my earths. I know these are not very period, but makes it easier to get the turntable out. That just means I just got to unsolder the screened phono connection. So I've earthed this plate, the turntable will be earthed and the chassis is also earthed, so a big improvement in how it used to be, just isolated by capacitors. So yeah, I'll get the turntable in and just see how it works. I've given the hinges a bit of a rub down, but they're not very good. I suppose what they really want doing is replating, but I've already blown the budget on this record player, so I think I'll just leave them as they are for the moment. So just finally looking at where I ended up, I did end up putting a T200 milliamp fuse in the HT just for extra safety. The HT is about 110 milliamp. Don't forget this is a voltage doubler, so that would be why. I've ended up with T630 milliamp for the mains, and also obviously the turntable motor. On the amplifier side, let's just zoom out a bit. Yeah, that was better. I ended up putting additional decoupling to the first amplifier valve because I could see a little bit of ripple on there still. So an extra 10k and 22 microfarad. That seemed to be okay. The cathode was sitting at 0.8 volts. 200 millivolts in gave about 3 volts out of that. The feedback is very interesting because I was looking at the reactance of some of the components, so to be honest, this feedback is not going to do a lot at bass frequencies. Looking at that, and then it starts to come to effect as we go into the mid treble or middle treble. The only interesting thing is, of course, that's then fed into a 40 nanofarad, and so that actually has a response that starts to shunt that feedback as the frequency increases. So this feedback only seems to have, I reckon, 6 to 7 dB effect. It might be because this is a different impedance speaker than the circuit I copied, but anyway, it seems to work okay, so we'll go along with that. Well, I played it for a few hours and gradually I had distortion. as you can hear. Not very good. I'm not sure exactly what's happened. I've tried a couple of substitute valves, so it's as though the bias has shifted or something, so I'm now scratching my head. Well, of course, I've looked at everything and I can't really see a fault, and it's not distorting now. Now, the interesting thing is the distortion sounded like it was at low level. It was like there was a threshold, like you were rectifying through a diode, and I'm just wondering, obviously I've stripped it down now, whereas it was all together before, so obviously everything here got hot. Now, I wonder if it could be the loudspeaker dragging when it gets hot. Right, I can hear the distortion again. So I think it's the speaker voice coil is rubbing when the speaker gets hot. I've got two speakers. I've got this one clipped on and I'm listening to the one in the cabinet, and it is scraping and going ahead at low levels. Well, the only speaker I could find, unfortunately, is 15 ohms, which is a bit of a disaster because that's really a bad mismatch. However, I've managed to find another transformer with a different ratio. The old transformer had a ratio of around 52. This one's got a ratio of 37, so that sort of helps to compensate for the higher impedance speaker. It's also got more meat on it, which should increase the bass response, hopefully. Yeah, with the impedance mismatch, it sounded very shrill. So, well, it's the best I can do in the situation we're in. I can't exactly go to a radio rally and get parts.
Green bottles.
Right, well, that's the Alba 212. That took a little bit longer to do than I thought, to upgrade it to a second valve for the preamp, and also to change it from a non-isolated chassis to an isolated chassis. Also a little bit more expensive than I thought. I think I must have spent £65–70 on parts on this one. The record player cost £27, so it just gives you a little idea of the cost of my project this time. Anyway, seems to work reasonably well. There's a little bit of residual hum still, but I'm going to expect that because that pot is not screened, and given it's not screened, it's going to have a little bit more pickup now that we've increased the amplification. Anyway, always fascinating to play with some old equipment like this, like I used to play with when I was younger. Right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.